Please welcome Rachel Rich.
Now that was a tough act to follow. I was enthralled, so I don't know about you. No, I just need this for my, I always have too much stuff, which is kind of how I do things. Oh, whoops, and I'm dropping my licorice candies. Oh, well, clean up. I swear to God, these are not pills. It does look like it, doesn't it? Yeah. I thought that was funny. All right. He said it already. I have quite a number of muses, and I never know what is going to come from my pen. And I was talking to some fellow poets one time, and I said, I don't have just one voice. Am I supposed to? And they said, nah, you don't have to. I said, well, good, because I don't. And sometimes my poetry is reflection. Sometimes nature, which of course has reflection in it, a little bit like the Chinese poets. I'm kind of fond of what I call Americana, which can be my own or my family's history, or I'm also a snoopy person. I might remember a conversation with another person, and depending upon the context, it's anonymous, or in One Today, it's not, really. And also, like I said, I had a little bit of background in metaphysics, and so I'm always open to a lot of different experiences. And much of my poetry is autobiographical. And I'll start with the first one. I was on vacation in Kauai with a friend, and we lucked out and had free tickets through our mileage programs. And she had been going there since the 90s and had been following the construction of a beautiful Hindu temple. And they'd just gotten the golden statues up on top, and so we got a bit of a tour. And I always take those situations seriously, even if I'm not schooled in that particular line of thought. I call this Reflections at a Hindu Monastery in Kauai. 100 reasons not to buzz around your head like flies. Remove your shoes and enter the temple anyway. Let regrets, wishes, and distractions burn away in the flames of pure silence. Your mind quiets, your heart opens. Words and expectations fall away. A million hands rise, lifting you up, until you see this journey is yours and not yours. Joy rises, peace falls. Can you control the tide? Do you need to? Now, go home, make dinner, wash the dishes, and kiss your loved ones. That's all it was ever about. This is the book that Stephen was talking about. I don't know if I brought copies or not, but it's the 150th birthday celebration. That was one of yours, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. And the books that I have for sale back there have a couple of my works in each one, sometimes prose, but also all of the wonderful poets from our area. And you'll see why I wore what I did today. This is called The Ghost of Patchouli Past. What is that scent reminding me of Mama's home fried truck stop? Tie-dye t-shirts, long hair, Birkenstocks with wool socks, velvet vests embroidered with tiny mirrors, wrap skirts from India, and bare feet with tinkling ankle bells. I can even smell buckwheat pancakes dripping with maple syrup. Alonzo wears maroon bloomers and fez. I'm in my purple dashiki. Our duets waft over the crowd as we fiddle for breakfast and tips. That's strong coffee, man. That's the peachy version. I thought I better be in character today for that one. Sometimes I get snoopy, and one of the things that I've discovered is that I think that writing or artwork makes a person more observant. Just a little anecdote. I was with a friend at breakfast at the old Keystone Cafe, and her son-in-law picked up a phone call from Russia. He's Russian, Jewish, and his family's back there, and they just go back and forth, don't think anything of it. And I used to speak Russian, and so I recognized just a bit about what he was talking about, and tried to ignore it out of politeness. And I spoke to my friend later. I said, "What's it like just having Hebrew and Russian and all these things weaving in and out of your background, your conversations?" She said, "What are you talking about?" She hadn't noticed. And I find that in life that's pretty darn common. But I'm one of these people that my eyes are moving around and I'm listening. And sometimes it makes others uncomfortable, but I assure you, if there's no life or death involved, I will keep it to myself. But this one I didn't. You'll see why. By the turn of the 20th century, white settlers in Northern California had wiped out all but a few members of the Yahi tribe. And one survivor so impressed scholars that he sheltered them at the California Museum of Anthropology. In Ishi Between Two Worlds, Theodore Krobe recounts Ishi's traditions as well as his journey into the modern world. The other survivors were only mentioned as footnotes. 2 decades after Krober's book, I met an elderly white settler from the Yahi region and asked if he'd heard about the massacres. He was afraid his answer could land him in jail. Guessing he'd been involved, I observed that whites were never convicted of killing Indians in those days. Mistaking that for approval, he completely let down his guard. Here is his true account in my poem. And I call this Symmetry. Chin in the air, certain of my admiration, the old man bragged how his father and the neighbors shot Indians for sport, one by one, braves creeping through the bushes to the creek for a drink. We nearly got rid of them, the Yahi tribe, subhumans hiding in a cave like beasts, one with webbed toes. Turns out we missed one, a girl. Our weird neighbor kept her hid from us for years. Who in their right mind would put up with her, always cowering and babbling, wouldn't eat at the table, wore bark and sisal till it fell off? And that man Ishi got away too. Lived at a museum. Now don't that beat all? The smug old man's own daughter had been born web-toed. Though he never saw the irony, hiding from visitors, alone, in a nursing home, trying to kill himself. How many of you here had ever read Ishi Between Two Worlds? It's a wonderful book if you ever get a chance to. It's a true account. The woman was an anthropologist, and she put together the story of what used to be considered the only survivor of the Yahi tribe. But since then, other accounts have trickled out, and that was one of them that I happened to run across. I've never seen it in writing. Now, this is a little change of atmosphere here. It's important to note that this forest that I'm talking about is spelled Xanzequeet, and is pronounced Zanziqueet. And see if you can tell who I'm channeling. With happy face and dancing feet, Tish wandered the forest of Zanziqueet, plucking a leaf, then picking a posy. Whoosh! What was that? She got real nosy. Tish chased after shadows and ran under wings. Whatever it was, a marvelous thing. Crunch! It landed down on the pebbly ground. Tish sucked in her breath. Her feet made no sound. 'Cause what she saw filled her with awe. A dragon that smiled and beckoned with paw. Tish walked real close and tickled his nose, scratched his ears, and played with his toes. But his eyes looked so sad, his nose had turned blue, his hide looked all dull, his breath smelled like glue. Hoping to help, she shined up his scales, brushed his teeth, and painted his nails. Suddenly he did what dragons do. He puffed foul smoke and breathed fire too. Dodging his tail to show she was brave, Tish chased that beast right back in his cave. She patted out flames and straightened her dress. Her elbows were singed, her hair looked a mess. Now here's the moral, the thing that is true. Don't trust smiling dragons, whatever you do. Some of you who have had a common experience may have had this experience in your family. And I hope it gives you comfort that others would put it into print. And maybe you'll think that you aren't the only one. And this is one of the reasons, I just turned 60, and it's one of the reasons I was reflecting that I became a poet and why. To avert chaos, I organized the world into nouns and verbs. Straight as seams on the charming toys and dresses my mom sewed for us, even when her mind sometimes slipped off course. Still, I kept faith in her for the longest time. Girls, let's go to the museum. We'll look at porcelain dolls. She made us a wonderful picnic. How would you like to learn French? Doesn't it sound marvelous? She inspired my love of languages. Aliens replaced your dad. Can you tell the difference? I was only 6. When I tried to tell others, my childish words slipped from my fingers like frightened fish. So I learned to say, I love, you love, she loves, we love, in 5 languages. To fill the void as her mind and her love slipped away. with those thoughts about obsession, I guess you'd say, because to be a poet you have to be somewhat obsessed with words, also with prose, obviously. And I bet anybody here who writes has gone over and over the words to find the right cadence, the sound, the way the vowels form as you say the words. And with that in mind, I tried an exercise, and I had a teacher, and her name was Joan Dobby. She's a wonderful poet. And she challenged us to take an image from a basket, and it was covered with a cloth. And I chose what turned out to be a little Middle Eastern man in a robe. It was probably from a nativity scene. And I channeled it. And I looked up a form of poetry from the Middle East called a ghazal. And it is in couplets, and the last word of each line rhymes. And I also thought about the Elfin King that Goethe wrote, that has the pace and the rhythm of a horse riding through the night. And so I pictured a camel, and this is what I came up with. So think about the rhythm of riding on a camel's back. And a friend of mine did the artwork, and we found an old postcard. And if you're not familiar with it, this is what is called a chapbook, which is an 8.5 by 11 mini book, and it's where a lot of poets, how they cut their teeth doing group projects together, and it's affordable. This is called King of Souk. Shaking sands from mat, adune his bed, Shem wraps a cloak and turban of red. Trips to souk bear pepper and spice, sacks are strapped and camel is fed. Reciting rhymes of fathers' fathers, he follows the signs where ancients led. Sharp eyes search secret mountains, twin rises nestle a stony head. A female passes his mount snorts, God knows even camels must wed. Few become more become many, too loud to hear all that is said. The din wavers, Shamsud enters, King of Souk, robed in red. And as usual with Middle Eastern poetry, there's a touch of history there. And if you might know that red is the color of marriage, of going to a wedding. So he's going to market to be married. And the reason I know the word souk is because it's in Scrabble all the time. Another one we did with Joan Dobby, and I insisted we put something on the front in case our, let's say, aunts or somebody just picked it up and thought, oh wow, that's great, because there was some profanity, but I'll read you the one that is clean. And this is what I call part of Americana, and this is about my dad. Don't ever tell. Don't ever tell. 3 little boys. One pushes the gas, lying on the floorboard on his belly. The second steers, perched on his knees. The third rides shotgun with his head out the window, playing in streaming air. High on life and cookies, they drive Mom's car across open fields. She's helping a friend, something about a baby. Won't be back till supper. The trio spies an old brick tower crumbling into the field. Factory ruins. They remember the farmer wanted it gone, a problem to plow around. Leaping out of the car, the boys apply energy to exploring, climbing, jumping, kicking over rubble piles. Inside, they notice dynamite. Must be left over from the last time the farmer tried to blast the old tower. Glancing at each other, the three grin. The eldest, 12, fishes in his pocket for matches. He's cool. He smokes. The boys light it and run like hell, hopping into the car and driving like the devil. From a distance, they wait. Nothing happens. Finally, in boredom, one fires a .22 to see if he can hit the window up top. Kaboom! They're thrown to the seat of the car. Holy Moses, don't ever tell Mom. Swear, don't ever. They're home long before dinner, playing in their rooms. Quiet. Sick to their stomachs from cookies, smoking, excitement, fear, triumph. Don't you ever tell Mom. I showed that to my dad, thinking that I had listened ever so carefully, and he said, "You've mixed up the two dynamite stories." I know I've got the individual parts right, but I guess I know them. This is a touch from my childhood. Wild children. Wild children, we play in desert dust and dirt in the trailer court driveway. Some of us are barefoot. One has a runny nose, another a ragged dress. A rattlesnake slithers up, coils, hisses, shakes its tail. With one mind, we form a circle, then each pick up a stone. A volley of rocks slams the snake, crushing it flat and quiet. Our circle grows smaller and smaller until we stand silently together. A dead snake lies in the center. We smile in savage triumph. I was 4. I was proud we were responsible and kept the 3-year-old out of their circle. I'll never forget my dad's smile when I said something about it. He goes, "You what?" So I showed him and he goes, "Yeah, rattlesnake." He said, "How about you go get your mother next time?" And I thought, why? But he taught me after that how to avoid trouble with animals and walk softly and breathe deeply and back away. And that has stood me in good stead ever since. How am I doing for time?
You got maybe a couple more.
Okay, all right. I wrote this in 2010. It's one of my favorites, but because it's autobiographical and it was a fun time in my life, but it's true, but it's also clear that I was very immature when the events happened. Okay, all right. And let's see if you detect the cross purposes of the male and the female in this. It's called San Francisco or Bust. Or the subtitle is God Protects Innocents and Fools. It's a conversation, okay? She said, "Let's go hiking, you and me. Let's camp our way, adventurous and free." He said, "When the St. Helens volcano blew down the mountain raced our Hodad crew. Clouds of ash billowing feet behind should have left us dead or blind." She said, It's crazy you landed here in Eugene, home of Ken Kesey and the faded blue jean. It's karma you're alive, and kismet we met. Come be my lover, my protector, my pet. He said, the mountain torched the trees we planted while taking our college degrees for granted. Now I've no clue how to make a living or even get south for family Thanksgiving. She said, my classes won't start until September, so let's make this summer one to remember. My job as groundskeeper pays for rent, and Rainbow can watch the apartment. So off they went, with barely a cent. They said, let's grab a pack and stick out a thumb. San Francisco, here we come. By the way, I wouldn't recommend that now. We had some life and death close calls, and it was only when we were tired and not paying attention. The rest of the time was wonderful. I thought I'd bring us back to the present and the practical and the annoyances and silliness of everyday life. I call this one the tyranny of apples. Untangling leashes that wind about my ankles, the dogs and I trip by a distinguished apple tree. Pert red fruit decorate its feet like ruby slippers. The overbearing sun coaxes tender fruit to give up its sweet scent. Their ready compliance delighting my selfish nose. Through a wild garden we tromp, up the creaky porch to rap on the door. A smiling beard booms before I can ask. Yes, you can have all you want, we laugh about. Friends brewing cider, boiling down apple butter, baking endless pies. So I go back home and haul over a laundry basket, minus dogs and leashes, to greedily gather all my arms can bear. Now huffing and wobbling down the cement sidewalk, I plop the basket onto the kitchen floor. Washing, trimming, coring, boiling, milling, freezing, canning. Oh, sweet sauce, pinkish gold, subtly tart. I fall into bed deeply satisfied. Then morning calls me to coffee. There wait the rest, staring back at me. And I'll close with one. Don't feel sorry for me. Things have improved vastly. But it's another reason I figured out at one point of how I got into poetry and how it soothes my mind under certain circumstances and also inspires me. And I talked to my neurologist about it. She said, you would not believe how common this is. Okay. It's called Brilliance, and this wonderful book was put out by Setting Forth with Catherine Valentino, and this is the beautiful artwork that she had done throughout the book. And if you ever run across one, I can't remember if there's one back there or not, but they're wonderful. And it has some of Charles' work in it and all kinds of local art writers. Brilliance. Inside cafe walls, upturned faces bask in window light, like sunflowers glad for scant rays. Through the glass, a brilliant flash washes away colors, and coffee chatter begins to pulse. Poetry shimmers under a scurrying pen. Words rise up from the page while one slips away to land on floating floors. Blinding, a shard of light pierces my eye. Was it inspiration or migraine? I'll close with that. That's why I take those little pink pills. I'll clean them up with her.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Let's give Rachel Rich another hand. So we'll take a quick break, about 5 minutes. We're running a little long, so when we come back, we'll do the open mic. Thanks.